Hello and welcome back everyone to Nerdy Nekama. Today we continue with the alternative ending of In My Shadow. This is part 2. Please, again, look at the content warnings. They are in the description below. The first part I think was the heaviest for the most part, but still, let's go. That night, or day, it was all the same to him down here. Atsumu didn't sleep. He was battling the despair forcing him to his knees and trying to immobilize him. No one was coming for him. The realization was like plummeting down an endless void, like he had been falling for months and now finally hit the ground. It should have killed him. It tried to kill him. A huge part of him, the part that had been conditioned to fear the dark and beg for her mercy, the part that had been taught to find comfort in her care after she made him sick and weak, that part screamed for him to finally lay down and rest and admit defeat. And he might have. He wanted to give in. He couldn't bear the torture anymore. Resisting her was torture, and any idea of escape seemed impossible at this point. He must have been a lunatic to think he had a chance to escape. But there was still a very tiny yet loud fraction of him left that he thought crazy for its ideas, but he listened to regardless. It was Sakusa's retirement that remained in his thoughts, nagging. It might be a stupid, foolish reason to cling to. It made no sense that this would motivate him to fight, while them thinking him dead paralyzed him. Perhaps the latter was just too hard to face. Perhaps he could have lived knowing that they could move on without him. Perhaps he had forgotten how to fight for himself through these past months. But volleyball was Sakusa's dream. The ace worked so hard to make it against all odds and fighting his foolish family in the process. He couldn't bear the thought of him giving up because of a lie. He had already seen Atsumu leave the sport, and he couldn't bear watching Omi do the same. As minuscule as it was, he clung to that sensation. If that was what kept him from laying down and accepting his fate, so be it. He had fought back hard at the beginning, but recently he had become almost too submissive, too scared. Surely after so long, Haru would assume her influence and control over him as certain, especially after his reaction to the recording. After a while, he had stopped trying to escape, deeming it safer to wait for help that, as it turns out, would never come. It might be years until Atsumu found the recording, or perhaps never if he discarded his phone eventually without finding it. Now that he knew it was up to him, every risk would be worth it. There was no safer option anymore. He had to strike at once when Haru felt safest. His stomach turned and he almost vomited when he realized that she was most confident in her position of power after weakening him by locking him in the dark. Only that he was always a wreck afterwards, and it got progressively worse every time. It took what must have been days to work up the courage to consider his plan and search for an anchor that would keep him sane enough to proceed when the door opened. He distanced himself from her again, and with every second passing, his panic grew. He knew it was only a matter of time until... This is really frustrating. It's been over a week now, and you're still moping about that video? Aren't you grateful for what I did for us? You're so difficult. No wonder your friends gave up on you so quickly. I understand now why they didn't even want to have you back, but... I'm different. I can help you, Atsumu. I can make you better. I will never leave you. Her hands closed around the sides of his face again, but he still refused to look up at her, even long after her grip had become painful. With a sigh that just for a moment exposed her true intent, she let go of him. That sickly sweet voice returned, only barely hiding her smile as she continued. I really don't want to do this, you know, but you leave me no choice. This is for your own good. He couldn't help the whimper escaping him, the silent pleas for mercy leaving his lips without permission, though it was probably for the best, more convincing. And then the door shut, and a few seconds after, everything went dark. His heart jumped in his throat, and tears spilled from his eyes as he began to shiver violently. He tried to fight it, and anchor himself as planned, but an onflood of unwanted memories filled his mind the moment the lights went out, and he couldn't help it. The panic he had been designed to feel was overwhelming. All the breathing techniques he had been taught for his anxiety were in vain. When he tried to close his eyes, his body wouldn't let him, searching the dark frantically for the threat he had been conditioned to associate with it. He needed... Atsumu. Reflexively, he turned his head away from the voice. He knew it wasn't real. Realizing after being locked in here for hours that he had been only hallucinating was one of the most painful things he had ever experienced. Haru had actively made use of that. Atsumu, you need to breathe. It was different this time. Yes, it was different. Slowly he turned around. He didn't see anything at first, but he believed to see the silhouette of Kida in the dark, which of course wasn't true, but that didn't matter. Yes, he feared the pain of waking up and finding it to be only a delusion that had driven him to this point, but this time he was determined to make this delusion reality. This time it wouldn't hurt as much, because he wouldn't wait anymore for them to find him. He would find them. That's good. Breathe. We'll be with you soon. A pathetic cry escaped his throat, having heard this so many times before and being disappointed again and again. The promised arrival replaced by pain. But this time, he had to believe it. Just this once. One more time, he had to fight. When the telltale steps descended the stairs, Atsumu was a wreck, sweating and shaking. Dry tear tracks had burned themselves into his skin. Relief flooded his system. However, this time it wasn't solely the one he was conditioned to feel and associate with his captor. He had managed to uphold a fraction of sanity, a fraction that blossomed into determination. If he failed, he wasn't sure he'd ever be able to regain the strength necessary. In his desperation, he put everything he had into this one attempt. Atsumu. As soon as the door opened, he lunged forward and grabbed Haru by her wrist she used to hold the blade at her neck, only to falter when he noticed that there was no blade. For how long had she been so complacent to think she didn't need it anymore? How weak had he become under her manipulation? Too weak, as he noticed now when she reacted with little more than anger. What do you think you're doing, darling? Let go of me and go back before... In a burst of anger, he clenched the hand around her throat more tightly. The truth is, he was scared. His knees felt like jelly and he almost gave in to her demand. Memories of all those horrible days spent in the dark made him want to comply out of fear of ending up there again. No, she was the one doing this. He didn't have to please her to escape punishment, he needed to get away. She had his mind all twisted. Atsumu had to remind himself that running was the only way he wouldn't end up locked in there again. Baby, are you sick? Have I taken it too far? I'm sorry. I really only want what's best for you. His grip had loosened against his will, and she reached out the hand he wasn't holding in place to touch his cheek ever so slightly. Shut up! He could practically feel his sanity and strength fading under her touch. The picture of his team, of Hinata crying, his expression solemn and eyes full of sorrow, flashed before his eyes, and with one rapid movement he pushed Haru from himself and into the room. She yelped, and he pulled the door shut quickly. Before she could say anything more to lure him back in or play on the trap she had carefully put in place in his mind, he ran. There was light coming from the top of the stairs, and as soon as he saw it, Haru's fear conditioning worked against her, as all his instincts screamed at him to follow the light. Storming outside, he breathed in fresh air for the first time in months. He stumbled, blinded by the intensity of the light he wasn't used to anymore. All the colors around him were so vibrant. He would have stopped to process this hadn't his survival instinct pushed him to move forward faster. It took him a solid half an hour of running to realize that he was sweating, not as a fear response anymore, but because it was warm. Very warm. The sun was shining brightly, and the plants around him blossomed and prospered in saturated green hues and decorated with colorful petals. Of course. She took him at the beginning of this season, at the end of October. It must be at least March now, if not April, since it had ended already. Having the proof for all the time spent alone, suffering and in pain shone directly into his face, turned his stomach, and he had to stop. The nausea overcame him, and he had to catch his fall against one of the houses around him while emptying his stomach between the bushes. This wasn't good. He had no idea where he was. He most definitely needed medical care, and most importantly, he needed to get home. That was his utmost priority. He wandered aimlessly for a while. His eyes were still getting used to the bright light, and his brain only slowly processed all the new sensory input after being deprived of them for so long. This was a lot more than in a never-changing basement room. Part of his brain took note with relief that the street signs were still in Japanese, so they hadn't left the country. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Atsumu flinched back as the stranger approached him. For a moment all he could hear was Haru's voice and see her where the stranger should be. Before his instinct to run could kick back in, his sight cleared. The person before him was older. They used a cane to walk and looked at him through round glasses. He wasn't sure how to answer them. No, he wasn't okay. No, he didn't have time to address that. "Can you tell me how to get to Osaka?" "Certainly, but wouldn't you like to sit down for a moment first? You look pale, do you?" He shook his head. "I just need to get home." They looked concerned, but nodded slowly. "Alright then, follow me. There's a train station nearby." "You don't have to..." "Ow, don't mind me, dearest. I'm old. I have time. Let me get you a bottle of water at the station, yes? You look dehydrated." "Okay." In little perplexed, he followed them as they guided him through the streets. Slowly the contours around him started to make sense again, but it was probably good that they were here to guide him. "Oh, and did I tell you about my grandchildren already? Well, you'll see, just recently my daughter and her wife adopted this beautiful young girl. She is so lovely. And my dear Aiko-chan is getting a sibling soon. Oh, also, she won her school reading competition last year. I am so proud of her. And wouldn't you know it, my third child turned out to be just like me. They have just scheduled an appointment for their top surgery this year. I'm so glad it has become so accessible." They went on and on about their children, and Atsumu had to admit it was comfortable, soothing in a way. At the same time, he almost cried again with how much it reminded him of his own mother. His mother, that he never managed to call about their victory, who thought he was dead. Oh, no, darling, are you okay? Forgive this old one for making you uncomfortable. I didn't mean... No, it's not. You remind me of my mom. I haven't seen her in a while, you know. I miss her. Oh dear. Will you be going home to her now? He gulped. He had to. All the pain he caused everyone he loved. How was he ever supposed to rectify it? Yeah. I gotta go somewhere first. She isn't the only one I let down. There was a moment of silence between them in which he noticed with relief the train station appearing in the distance. Let me tell you this, from an old parent who has seen 4 of their children grow up and fall down times and times again in the process. It is never too late to make amends. A loving parent will always be there to embrace their lost child if they come to apologize. Thank you. Think nothing of it. Here, I will get you water and a ticket for the train. No, I can't accept. Oh, I insist. Indulge this old one by letting them help you reunite a child with their mother, yes? Before he could stop them, they had already reached the ticket counter and bought the ticket before proceeding to lead him to one of the small kiosks. At least, tell me your name so that I can repay you. That's not necessary, really. I'm just doing what must be done. He stared at them, bewildered. You know, I didn't talk about my 4th child. I rarely do these days. I wish she'd come home to me one day, just like you do now. I can't do much more than wait at this point, but I can help you so that another parent's suffering will be cut short. Let me do that much. For a moment, Atsumu was still frozen in place before he bowed deeply in gratitude and accepted the things they gave him. Thank you. You're saving my life. Think nothing of it. Go and hug your mouth for me. That would already make me happier than anything else. He nodded, and with a heavy heart left her behind the ticket gates as he went. Though, it beat a bit better knowing that he was going home. In only a few hours, he'd be home. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you did, so you won't miss out on the next parts. And yeah, as you can see, we're getting better. We're getting close to the happy end. Maybe, perhaps, probably. Tell me your favorite moment and or quote under the pinned comment. It would mean the world to me. And of course, any other feedback in the comments would also be appreciated. Much, much appreciated. A special thanks as always goes out to my Digi Neckos, especially Anya and Izzy Dizzy who just joined. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this channel. Honestly, it helps me so much. Here are my other social media. Check them out if you like. I am of course most active here on YouTube, but also TikTok and Instagram for a bit. And here is more content. Check it out if you like. Also, if you want to keep updated on the projects I'm currently working on, check out my Discord and the coming soon section there. And now I hope you have fun, amazing day. Bye!
Everybody just do your thing. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.